In this video, I want to talk about what I think is the most important piece of health and fitness equipment you can own. And my goal is that by the end of the video, you'll be nodding along and saying, you know what? I think he's right. To do this, we need to take a trip back in time to the year 2017. More specifically, Tuesday, August 1st, 2017. At this point, I was going to do a little roundup of like the news and top stories from 2017. But when I look back and had a look at the news stories, they were all really, really grim. So I decided not to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is take a look at my diary from 2017. Let's see if you can figure out the most important piece of health and fitness equipment that I own by having a little look through some of my diaries from over the last few years. So the goals I set myself in 2017 were to fix my muscle issues and my mobility and flexibility. At this point, I didn't know I had arthritis, but I'd been living with chronic pain for several years. Actually, at this point, I think I'd been misdiagnosed. I'd seen a doctor and she ran some blood tests and told me that they were all clear. So I had kind of crossed arthritis off the list of things that could be wrong with me. So what I did here was I started tracking things. So everything I was doing, like what time I got up in the morning, the workout I was doing, the food I was eating, what time I went to bed, how I was feeling, all of the kind of day-to-day goings on in my life. For example, here I noted that my back was pretty sore on this day and that I had consistent discomfort while doing kettlebell swings. This detailed tracking only lasted about a week though, and then suddenly drops off. In fact, the following page kind of jumps forward to February 4th, which I think is the following year. I have really no idea what happened here. I wasn't taking very good notes, but this wasn't the end of the tracking that I was doing. If we fast forward a little bit to October, I guess I wanted things to be a little bit more structured, so I bought this diary that actually divided the days into little sections on each page. Now, this book or diary is from the book Atomic Habits, but I hadn't read that book. I wasn't following that. Basically, it was October and I needed to find a 2017 diary, which it turns out you can't really buy in October because who wants to buy a 2017 diary at the end of the year? But this one is actually like an 18-month calendar. So it starts halfway through 2017 and goes into 2018. So that's why I ended up with this one. And I put together this pretty simple progress tracking system, let's call it, where I set a couple of goals. And on each day where I achieved the goal, I would put like an X or an O. So as you can see here, I'd listed the same goal. I was trying to be pain-free by 2018, a pretty lofty goal, especially when you have arthritis and you don't know about it. But I was writing a book at the time, which never got finished. That was just a thing that I wanted to write that I started writing but never actually finished. And I was also trying to quit smoking. So I was mostly just smoking when I was drinking, but I wanted to just be completely tobacco free. So basically I would put an X for each day where I didn't have any sort of tobacco. And I would put an O for any day where I hit my writing goal because I was trying to write this book. So the days passed something like this. You can see there I went to see the Slackers on the 15th, who are a really, really good ska band. And the tracking was going along pretty well. I was being pretty consistent. At some point I added in an F, and I think the F was for fasting, because this was around the time that I started doing intermittent fasting. But I'm actually not sure. I probably should have clarified that a little bit better in my notes. And then I completely fell off the wagon. The tracking just stopped and the diary gets empty for a long time. But that wasn't the end of it. If we fast forward to May in 2018, we see that things suddenly get a lot busier. What actually happened around this time was I started a course. It was a 6-month part-time course to become a certified personal trainer. So again, I was trying to figure out what was going on in my body. I was trying to deal with the pain while also trying to get stronger and fitter and healthier and all that good stuff. So I was doing this course, and as I was doing the course, I was learning more about, how to structure workout programs, how to track those workout programs, how to measure progress, all that sort of stuff. And that's all kind of reflected here, right? This shift in the things I was writing down. So from this point on, everything gets a lot more detailed and everything gets cramped because there was multiple days in each one of these pages, and I had a lot of information that I was trying to cram in there. But you can notice here that while the workout structure got better and my tracking got better, the pain was still there. You can see here that I flagged that I had some pain and some discomfort in my shoulder. And the following week I'd flagged as an injury recovery week. So I had to change and adapt to account for that. And this is an interesting thing that I think is worth stopping on, and it's because I heard a quote last week that I really, really liked. And the quote was something along the lines of, modify, don't miss. So if you've got some goal and you're trying to be consistent day to day, if for some reason you can't put in your full effort on that day, don't miss the day, just modify what you're doing. So let's say you need to miss a day of strength training because you can't pick up a barbell because you hurt your hand. Maybe go for a walk that day. I mean, sure, it's not the same thing, but you're doing something, right? So modify, don't miss. I think that's a kind of a good takeaway from this video. It was certainly a good takeaway from that conversation I was in the other day when I heard it. And I maintained this all the way through to January 2019 without any issues. Notice that the 1st of January was a hangover, and for pretty obvious reasons, but I started tracking days off as well, and I think that's pretty important. Rest days are important, so I think tracking these days is just a good habit to get into. And then I upgraded. I got a new diary. I had a full page now per day, and my training started to evolve. I was doing calisthenics, and now I was following very specific programs. I'd long finished the actual personal training certification, and I was applying that knowledge. And I was really focusing in on calisthenics at this point. So I was focused on developing a very specific skill, and for example, a one-arm push-up or a one-legged squat. And I developed this little system here where I'd put an up arrow if the movement felt good or if I did better than the previous week, and I'd put 2 little up arrows if I should progress the next week. So let's say I was doing 10 push-ups and they felt easy. I would do 2 up arrows to say, well, next week I should be doing 12, right? And if I get to 20, and maybe if I have 2 up arrows, that means, okay, now I need to make the push-up harder, maybe elevate my feet. So that would be every time there was a double up arrow, it meant the movement in the next workout would be getting more difficult. And from this point, I started to use more consistent notation. Again, I was applying what I had learned from the personal training certification, and everything was becoming a lot clearer. From this point, it's a lot easier for me to look back and actually read and understand the workouts I was doing because the notation was a lot clearer. Here I got a tattoo and took a day off to recover. Again, days off in the diary, they're important. I can't remember which tattoo that was, but I just started tracking all these little things like this. And then here I actually tried a new system where I started ranking movements with smiley faces. So smiley face meant it felt good. A neutral face means it felt okay, whatever. And a sad face meant it didn't feel strong, right? And that didn't really last, to be honest. It was just too much effort doing that. And then I had a hangover conveniently on my rest day. So again, I just started to take all of these notes. And it's interesting looking back and thinking, well, I wonder what I did that Friday night that resulted in, or that Saturday night that resulted in this hangover. And around this time, interestingly, was when I was actually diagnosed with arthritis. And I made a note that I was feeling very sore and immobile here. And also that actually I'd been eating very poorly in the run-up to this day. So I started making these connections here between, lifestyle and how my body was actually feeling. So in 2020, I upgraded to a bigger diary because the pages again felt a little bit cramped. Here's how the format worked. I should probably explain this. I'm not going to go into detail, but basically I write the exercises and any weights I'm using and the amount of reps I'm doing all on the left-hand side. Then I do this curly brace, and the curly brace covers a certain amount of exercises. That means they're all grouped together. And on the right-hand side of the curly brace, that's how many times you repeat, and then you have a rest. So for example, I might do 10 push-ups, 10 squats, and do that 3 times. So I'd have push-ups by 10, squats by 10, curly brace by 3. And that just kind of helps me track what I'm doing. And the following week, I can look back and say, okay, last week I did 3 sets of 12 push-ups. Maybe this week I do 4, or maybe this week I do 3 sets of 15. So it's just a way to kind of really understand the progress that I'm making. I was also doing, continuing more focused programs. I did Simple and Sinister, which is something from Pavel Tsatsouline. That's a kettlebell program where basically you do swings and Turkish get-ups. And then I did the Russian kettlebell challenge. So I actually did this program where you're training for what is called the snatch test. A kettlebell snatch looks something like this. And basically in the snatch test, you need to do that 100 times in less than 5 minutes. I failed, but if you look at the progress here, it's pretty amazing. My first attempt at this test, I wasn't very well conditioned, and it took me 20 minutes. But after that focus program, I was actually able to get it down to 8 minutes and 49 seconds, which was a huge improvement. And on this day, or a day soon after that, I made a note of how good I was feeling that day. And I think it's really kind of nice to look back and see when I make those little notes about feeling good, because there's a lot of notes about days I was sore. And here was the first time I managed to strict press a 32 kilo kettlebell with one arm. And you can see from the note that I was pretty happy with that. I underlined it a couple of times. And yeah, that was a good day. And that's why I folded the page up as well. I started folding the pages on significant milestones. So when I start or end a program, or if I hit some sort of strength goal, like, pressing that 32 kilo bell, it means as I flick through the diaries, I can go, oh yeah, this was a good day, and I can stop there. Sometimes I track weight. I would just write it at the top of the page. Usually that's when I was trying to put on weight, if I was trying to build muscle. But I didn't do that too much. Strength was my main concern. Then we hit 2021, which was my first year of the 10K swing challenge. I do this every January. I have done every year since then, which is 500 swings every day for 20 straight days, totaling 10,000 swings. And yeah, it's just a fun thing to do in January. I'm part of this community online, the Dan John University, the forum. A bunch of people kind of do this every year, so started doing that. And then most of the year after that was kind of just straightforward workouts. I was still battling a lot of injury and a lot of pain. Here I highlighted how I often did yoga on my rest days, just as a way to move and keep moving. So a rest day wasn't me just lounging around all day, not moving, sitting on my computer and all that stuff. And I'd highly recommend that. In June that year, I did a push-up challenge, which I was trying to raise money for Arthritis Ireland. I think I raised a couple of €1,000. And the goal here was to do 200 push-ups in 20 minutes every day for the month of June, which was like 6,000 push-ups total over that month. Here's the final day of the challenge, and you can see from my note that I was pretty happy to be done with that challenge. If you look at my rest day there, and yeah, my rest days always included a walk or something, or yoga, like I mentioned. So whenever I write rest, really I'm saying I'm not doing some sort of heavy workout. So I rested a few days after that, and then I tested my max push-ups, which went from 43 to 60 after that month of doing push-ups. So yeah, doing a lot of push-ups turns out makes you better at push-ups. Who would have thought? But then came a rough period. Here I noted that I was very sore, and here I was forced to take a rest day because the pain was too much. And here's another one. It's not a coincidence, I don't think, that this was happening around Christmas, which is when, routines and food choices and all that sort of stuff can be kind of impacted by the season that's in it. But yeah, there you go. 2022 started with the 10K swing challenge again. Then things were going fine. Training was good, but then things got interrupted. I think we all know what happened here, but we're not going to talk about that too much. Then I spent a couple of weeks working from Atlanta, which was interesting because when I got back from Atlanta, it took me about I felt awful, and it took me about 6 weeks to get back to feeling good. I'm sorry, America. If you're American, I don't mean any offense, but I always find whenever I go to the US, which I do a bit for work, I always find I feel awful. And I think the travel is part of the sleep disruption, but the food, I just always feel awful. And especially if you're a vegetarian or a pescatarian like me in somewhere like Atlanta, the options aren't amazing, but I just always feel awful. But after that period, I joined a gym. So in terms of equipment, I went from my home workouts, which was just kettlebells. I had a pull-up bar and I had some adjustable dumbbells. Now I had a barbell. And it kind of completely changed the workouts I was doing. And right here, I think, is probably one of my most significant milestones. You see this pen? That was the pen I used in every one of my diaries, and on this day it ran out. So I actually left it in that journal. It is sitting in there right now. And that's one thing that I'm actually really, really proud of. Like, this pen is a literal progress bar for my consistency over this period of time. From when I first started consistently tracking in the journal, it was just that pen, and it's completely empty. Fast forwarding into this year, the 10K swing challenge again, spent some time in LA, and then we're back to the present day. And that is our little trip back through time. So, having been through all of my diaries for the past 6 years or so, what do you think my most important piece of health and fitness equipment is? If you said these, well then you were right. My diaries. All of that progress, the ups and downs, the lessons learned, the little notes that when I look back on now that make me smile, the remembering the days of pain and frustration, not understanding why, making connections between lifestyle and how I'm feeling, and seeing how far I've come. This is my most important piece of health and fitness equipment, because this is the journey and this is what matters. Some months I only trained body weight, some months I trained kettlebells exclusively. More recently I've been training with barbells. There were periods of months where I was just following these follow along kind of cardio YouTube videos where I was throwing myself around my living room in an attempt to get fit. But all of that, all of the equipment, everything that I put into that, that's all kind of incidental. That's just the details. And it's these journals that capture what's really important. And that is consistency and progress. And they really do motivate me to keep going. I'm 38 now, so if I'm really lucky, I've got about 50 more of these journals to fill out. And to be honest, I'm really looking forward to filling out each and every one of them. And that is all I've got for today. Let me know if you agree or disagree. If you're not tracking your workouts and progress and making notes in a journal, I would highly recommend it. You know, you can use an app, you can use a computer, but there's something for me about the tactile nature of a pen and paper. And, you know, I've got, hang on a second, a pretty big stack. This isn't even all of them, you know, several years worth of diaries there. And it's really nice to look back on them. And to be honest, it can be, you know, a bit emotional going back and seeing all of those days of the pain and the not understanding why, and then seeing how far I've come and the progress and the gains I've made along the way. And it's been significant. So yes, I would definitely recommend that. And this video is already getting long, so I will wrap it up there. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like, consider subscribing, and other than that, have a great day.